Once again, guys, welcome back. This is the fourth week of this semester, and today we are going to talk about instructional methods. In this class, we are going to learn about instructional methods, what type of instructional methods and strategies, for example, a teacher-centered instructional methods and student-centered instructional methods, and we will take examples of both of these instructional methods and strategies. But before we move on to learn about these strategies or methods, we want to make sure that learning does not happen by magic. That's why we as a teacher, we need to go to university, take a diploma or a whole bachelor, 4 years to actually be able to teach, to be called teacher. So teaching is actually you as a teacher, you need to develop some knowledge on how to communicate with your students. What are the skills that you need to have, or the attitudes that you need to have to be able actually to interact with your students, with the environment, and how to actually make the information easy for them to understand. So actually teachers must plan and manage their actually classes and lessons before they go actually to the classroom. That's why in this course we have an assignment about lesson plan. Lesson plan is actually going to prepare you or give you an idea on how teachers actually prepare their lessons before actually going to the actual classroom. Okay, and then this is actually the purpose of these strategies. There are so many methods and strategies for teaching and learning, and today we are going to learn about these strategies, define each one of them, take examples, and know the advantages and disadvantages for each of these strategies and methods. All right, so what do we actually mean by instructional strategies? We can define instructional strategies based on the term itself, based on our understanding. Instructional strategies, it's approaches or methods or styles of how we are going to conduct our teaching classes. Okay, so instructional strategies is an approaches we as a teacher need to actually select and follow this strategy inside our classroom. So in general, what I need you to actually understand that there are two types of instructional strategies, which are teacher-centered strategies and student-centered strategies. And from the term itself, that we can tell these strategies is all about the teacher. Teacher is going to be responsible for the whole process of teaching and learning, while in this, the second strategy, the students going to be involved in our teaching and learning process, and we will take examples for each one of them to understand even more. Okay, so instructional methods and strategies, as I mentioned earlier, there are so many strategies that we use in a daily basis in our teaching and learning. For example, presentation, demonstration, and then discussion, and then drill and practice, tutorial, cooperative learning, gaming, teaching by gaming, teaching by simulation, teaching by discovery, teaching by using problem-solving approach. Now, let's go to each of these strategies, and then define each of these strategies, get to know some of the advantages, disadvantages, and how we actually use it. For example, presentation, when you use a presentation, you are using a source of information to provide information to your actually students, and in this strategy you are simplifying the information. You are giving them, as much as you can, a simple information to understand. And for the characteristics of this style or strategy, it's going to be more attractive because you are using internet websites, you are using videos, you are using audio, and so on. And for the integration, it's going to be more integrated for the students because it's more catchy actually. You are giving them something, which is like images or videos, and then sometimes you use sounds and so on. All these kinds of things that are going to be more catchy for the students, and you will have their focus at all times. And for the advantages, actually, using presentation, you can use you can present one time, you can actually present another time, and then you can actually print out the slides, hand out, and then giving them to your students. You can actually make the students prepare their own presentations as well. And for the limitation, it's actually difficult for some students to adapt to presentation style, because not all of the students are aware of using computers and software and so on. And for sometimes it's going to be boring, especially if you as a teacher use the presentation the wrong way. And what I mean by using the presentation in a wrong way is just copy and paste the information, the whole text, without summarizing it, make the slides full of words, which is not the correct way of using PowerPoints. It's called PowerPoints actually because from the name of PowerPoints, points means only points. You need to use the headlines and then explain about it. You don't need to copy and paste everything in your slide and making the slides very crowded and boring actually to look at. And some of the teachers are old, and they are not aware of using computers, and it's not actually easy for them to use PowerPoints or computer software in general. So these are some of the limitations of the presentation. For the presentation, what is the integration or the medium that we use to deliver our presentation? We have actually many medium that we can use to deliver our presentation. For example, we have interactive whiteboard, and then we have PowerPoint that we are using right now, and then we have something called clickers. Clickers is actually anything, whether it's a hardware or a software, that you actually use to facilitate your teaching activities, such as PowerPoint is one of the clickers. Okay, so any software that you use to actually deliver your presentation is called clickers. And then sometimes we use printed materials actually to actually deliver our presentation. And then sometimes we use small objects. For example, if you want to teach primary schools about to teach them about fruits, you could bring some fruits. You could bring, if you want to teach about computer hardware. You could bring a laptop, you could bring the mouse, the motherboard, and so on. So this is actually all involved in a presentation strategy. The second strategy that we have is demonstration, and we can actually define demonstration as the process of teaching someone how to make or do something, a step-by-step process in front of your students, okay? And then you need to ask your students to do it again. And for the characteristics, it could be done actually for the whole group, the whole class, or small group, or sometimes you need to do it individually. And what the students need to do, they need to actually observe what you are doing, and then they need to repeat you. And what we can integrate in the demonstration process, digital camera, equipment, and video, because we need actually to actually shoot the teacher while demonstrating something, and then we could use this footage to actually repeat for the students if needed. And for the advantages, the students get to see you before they doing it, okay? For example, if you want to actually demonstrate to them how to write an essay, okay, you could actually demonstrate in front of them and write a complete essay before you ask them to do so. So this is one of the advantages. And then the second advantages of this strategy is you are going to guide your students. So you are going to use you are going to actually to do this task that you are going to ask them to do after you, so it will be less errors if they were focused with you. And for the limitations, it's actually not hands-on, and it's not flexible, because not all of the schools have cameras, and then they can shoot or take footage of these teachers while demonstrating the lesson and then repeating it again. So in the demonstration strategy, what do you need to be integrated in the process of demonstration? You need to integrate digital cameras, equipment, and video. Once again, the demonstration is doing something in front of someone, step by step, to teach them how to do it, and then they can repeat the video or the footage later on, and then they can repeat at their own time. The third strategy that we have is drill and practice. What do we mean by drill and practice? Drill and practice is one of the strategies that we use as a teacher, and we actually do it's something like continuous evaluation. If I want to actually teach students some of the skills or some of the knowledge, some information, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach them once and then test their information, and then do it again, and then test them again, doing it again, third, fourth, fifth time, till they master this skill or information. Okay, so from the meaning of it, drill and practice, I'm going to ask the students to practice as many times as they want. What I need from them is to master these skills. I'm going to repeat once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 10 times until they all master that skill that I'm going to teach them, or whatever that I'm going to teach them. And for the characteristics, it actually increases the fluency of my students, and occurs after instruction and must include feedback. Feedback, as I mentioned, I'm going to teach them and then going to test them, and then I'm going to teach them again, and then I'm going to test them again. So there is actually a continuous feedback from them. And what I need to integrate is software partners, flashcards, worksheets, and so on. And for the advantages, it's actually, as I mentioned, it's a corrective or continuous feedback. The information is chunking built in practice. So what we actually do is, when we teach students to do something by their own, it's very hard to actually forget. So if I want to teach the students to actually use the computer, I'm going to call the students one by one and then ask the students to turn on the computer, maybe run some of the software and then shut down the computer again, and then doing it again and again and again to till they actually master how to turn on the computer and then how to deal with the computer and so on. And finally, for the limitation, it's actually repetitive, potentially boring, because we don't have the time. If you have, for example, 40 or 50 students in your class, to actually teach one by one and then ask them to repeat and repeat and repeat, it's going to be boring, and it's very hard to actually adapt to such a strategy. So once again, we can define drill and practice strategy as an exercises that are short-term activities that are usually completed in under 10 minutes, and they should be followed up by the reinforcement or the feedback or the test, the evaluation. Okay, and for the integration, as I mentioned, we can actually integrate interactive software, partners, flashcards, and worksheets, and so on. Moving on to the next instructional strategy, which is tutorial. What do we mean by tutorial is, for example, before we define it, if you want to learn about anything, the first thing that you actually do, each one of us nowadays do, is go into YouTube and then how to do blah blah blah, and then plenty of videos going to appear, and then when you click one of these video, some of them are tutorial videos. So this is the meaning of tutorial. You want to learn about something, so you are going to seek a support from an agent. This agent could be YouTube, could be paid websites, could be some of the free websites, whatsoever. It's actually you are going to need some support from a third party. This third party is going to actually teach you how to practice, and then they are going to get the feedback from you until you achieve the level of mastery or whatever it is. So this is what we mean by tutorial. And for the characteristics, it's most of the time it's independent. You going to actually learn by yourself. You are desire to learn about, for example, Photoshop or Adobe Premiere. You are going to go to YouTube, so it's independent. You are going to do it by yourself, okay? And sorry, so it's actually one-on-one, you and the video, and you are going to have a lot of information from this video, but you can actually repeat and repeat and repeat till you master the information you get from this video. So the integration could be a software, could be audio recording, could be video as well. All right. And for the advantages, it's independent work, it's self-paced, it's individualization, which actually help the students to depend on themselves to actually learn about things that interest them. All right. And for the limitation, it's potentially boring, because most of us, when you want to learn about something, and you are going to find, for example, a series of videos, 10 videos or 15 videos, is going to be very long. So you know, you'll get frustrated and you will not actually continue. But if you have the desire actually to finish the job, you are going to actually overcome this limitation. And this is actually what do we mean by tutorial. And then we have what it's called discussion. And from the discussion, the word itself, which means I'm going to discuss with my students. It's all about changing ideas. All right. So I'm going to, for example, ask them a question. What do you think about that? What do you think about this, issue? And then the students will start to actually talk and then give their own opinions among students, from the teacher and students together. And then there will be kind of communications between both teachers and the students at the same time. And for the characteristics, could be a small group, large group, new topics, higher level questions, because we cannot actually apply discussion on each and every lesson for the whole semester. We are not going to finish our actually syllabus, but we use discussion when needed, when I want to ask some out of the box questions and so on. What actually can integrate is video conferencing, concept mapping, and so on. And for the advantages, it's actually very interesting and challenging at the same time. Interesting because the students will be able to actually give their own opinions. Challenging because some of the students don't like to actually talk or speak during the class. And it's actually going to give us new ideas, because sharing is caring. When you share with 40 students or 20 students inside your classroom, you will get some new ideas with them. And when you discuss with your teacher, you can actually open some points and points of discussion that if you didn't have this discussion, we will not talk about these points. So discussion is very actually interesting and good actually strategy to use with your classrooms. And for the limitations, potential for limited participants, as I mentioned, if you have a very big class, you will not have the enough time actually to hear from all your students. Okay, and sometimes difficulty level, age appropriateness, because some of the students will if they are old or they are young, they will be shy to actually share some of the knowledge during the class. Moving on to cooperative learning. Cooperative learning is actually a grouping strategy. From the meaning of it, it's not an individual learning strategy. It's done among group together. So students work together to assist each other learning, which is a very fine example for the actually project, the group project. Group project is a cooperative learning example. And it actually goes to small groups, formal or informal, just like we divided ourselves in this class for 4 to 5 students in one group to actually come out with the final project. And for the conditions, individual role, part of team, individual and group accountability, every one of the group needs to do something. Okay, so each one of you going to actually present what have you done in this task, in this project. For the integration, could be media production, software presentations. And for the advantages, learning benefits, because when you share the ideas between the team of the group, it's going to be very actually helpful and benefits for all of the group team. And for the limitation, it actually cannot be done for a big groups. Okay, so there is actually a size limitation and potential overuse, group member limitation. So we actually need to be aware of the size, the group size. You know, when we used to take this course face to face, the group you know, used to be 2 to 3 students only, because we had the time, we had actually we can actually control the whole process. But now, since we learn online, so we actually expanded the group to 5, or maybe sometimes if the class is so you know, crowded numbers, we could have 6 students and at one group. Then we have games, learning by games, which is very simple to understand, because what we are going to do is we are going to teach our students using certain games. Okay, so it's a competitive environment. Learners follow rules to attain the challenging goal. And for the characteristics, it's actually motivating. There is actually a challenging problem-solving skills, recognizing patterns. So it's very actually useful for the students to be active as much as they can in the class. For the integration, we could, in the games, we could use digital, paper-based, and the internet as well. And for the advantages, it's very engaging for the students, and it match our outcomes, and you know, it has variety of settings, and the students will be more attractive, so they will gain attention to the classroom. And for the limitation, competition concerns, some of the time students are so competitive, so you need to actually be aware of that. Levels of difficulty, you need to actually use some games that, you know, appropriate with the level of the students you are teaching. And some of the games are, you know, expensive. Just go for the free games if you could. And then misdirection of attention. Some of the time when you use games inside your classroom, your students will be out of the class, you know, so they will think about internet and gaming. They will forget about the class purpose or goals or objectives. So you need to be aware, and you need to monitor them from time to time. And then we have simulation. What do we actually mean by simulation is that we are using technology to actually bring a real life situation in front of the students' eyes inside our classroom. Simulation is something that pretty much about using the technology like augmented reality. For example, if you are a pilot, before you go and ride the real plane, they use simulation. They put you in a place that is like pretty much the same as the pilot cabinet, and you just go and ride, and you will have the same experience as you are riding a real plane. This is what we call by simulation. And one more example is if you want to teach some, you know, chemical experiment, you could actually run the whole experiment using augmented reality softwares to actually show your students these experiment without you know, taking them to the lab. And it could be done for the whole class or small group and so on. And for the integration, it could be physical sciences, math, role play, and software. And for the advantages, it's very safe actually, because we didn't have to actually ride a real plane with no experience, you know, so it's very safe, and so on. And for the limitation, there is actually a questionable representation. Next, we have discovery strategy. What do you mean by discovery? Discovery is actually powerful instructional approach that we actually use for our teaching and learning, which guides and motivates learners to explore information and concepts in order to construct new ideas. It's all about their own time and their own ways of finding these ideas and identify new relationships and create new models of thinking and behavior. And it's very much same as problem-based strategy, which is very related to actually problem solving problems, because the students need to actually discover their own way to actually discover discover their own way to actually find answers for these questions. The characteristics, the discovery could be appropriate way or method for scientific method, and it could be when you want to discover, when you want to teach your students using the discovery strategy, you need to guide them, not actually telling them what to do and then forget about them. No, you need to actually discover them and be there step by step. And for the integration, you could use digital tools like cameras, GPS, and videos, and so on. For the advantages, it's actually very engaging, repeated steps, and the students could be actually under your control. You need to monitor your students. And for the limitation, it could take actually a lot of time, and it could be misunderstood by some of the students. If you want to actually teach them about something and tell them go discover about this something, they could be actually ending up looking for something else. So that's why you need to monitor your students to make sure you are not misleading them to something else. Next, we have the problem-based learning, where the students can actively seek solutions to problems situated in real world. We ask the students or give them some tasks that they need to solve it by themselves. This is what do we mean by problem-based learning. It's all about the students. We give them a real-life problems that they need to actually solve. And we could integrate a software, concept mapping, and databases. And for the advantages, it's very engaging for the students, and the level of complexity could actually make the students a great thinker about how to solve these problems. And for the limitation, it's actually difficult to create, because not all of the students are able actually to use such a strategy. It's very hard and complicated for some of them, and it takes a lot of time at the same time. So it's going to be actually an exhausted strategy to use for some levels only. Okay, but at the same time, it's very, very useful and beneficial for both students and teacher as well. So we actually got to learn about lots of teaching strategies in this class, and actually these are not the only instructional strategies. There are so many instructional strategies out there, but what I need you to focus on in this class, these are the strategies that I need you to focus on in this class. And what do we actually need to know about learning context? We have variety of learning context. For example, we have face-to-face, distance learning, blended learning or blended instruction, independent study, and then we have informal study. For the face-to-face classroom, we all know about the face-to-face classroom. The learning context is most prevalent and unlimited options for learning. And for the distance learning is actually the students in one location and then the teacher in another. They are physically physically apart from each one, one to another. The classroom divided into many parts and no students resources. This is for the distance learning. And we have blended instruction, which is actually what we are doing in this class, which is synchronous and asynchronous. I'm recording the video for you so you can actually watch it anytime you would like, and then we meet online and then brief the presentation again, and then we have questions and answers. This is what we call blended instruction. And then we have independent study. Teacher prepares context and materials. Students work at their own pace. What if I record the videos only and then giving it to you without any meetings online? This is what we could call as independent study. And then we have informal study, which prepares students with technology, informal nature of the study. And for us to decide what media or materials that we are going to integrate in our classes, we need actually to consider some factors. So, for example, some of the materials are free and some of them are expensive. So you as a teacher need to actually understand what is the material, or what are the materials that you are going to actually utilize inside your classroom that is free. Okay, for example, the internet is an open source website, and it has a lot of videos, audios, and images that you can use. And for the advantages, it's up to date, in-depth treatment, variety of uses, students manipulation. This is like, free. We call it free source or materials. And then we have other medias, which are printed materials, videos, kits, CDs, and DVDs. These are not free materials, and sometimes it could be very actually expensive. And for the limitation, bias of advertisement could be happening in some of these media, and promotion of special interest, limited quantities. So how we actually decide, we need to make sure to watch whatever materials before giving the students to actually watch them, to avoid any misleading for the students. All right, now let's talk about or let's categorize these strategies that we have learned about in two categories, which are teacher-centered strategies and student-centered strategies. For the teacher, we have teacher direct the learning, for example, the demonstration, presentation, drill and practice, and tutorials. These four strategies, the teacher actually is the leader in this sessions. Okay. Engage the students in higher order thinking for the teacher-centered strategies. And what we could actually integrate in our teacher-centered strategies is clickers, PowerPoint, videos, interactive whiteboards, drill and practice or tutorial software, podcasts, and so on. And this is all about the teacher-centered. And what I want you actually to do is to be able to differentiate between each one of these strategies: teacher-centered strategies and student-centered strategies. Second, we have student-centered strategies. And why do we call it student-centered strategies? Because it's actually occurring during required learning participations. Step of assure, and this is one of the models that we are going to learn about later on in this class. Teachers in this strategies are facilitators, student decision making, and authentic, hands-on, and more engaging, because we are giving the students a lead to be more active in in the teaching and learning process. And these are some of the strategies that student-centered strategies. The students will be centered or using these strategies. For example, discussion, cooperative learning, games, simulation, discovery, and problem-based learning. So if we actually could differentiate between the student-centered and teacher-centered strategies or learning, for the teacher-centered is actually the knowledge and experience for the teacher only. Only the teacher has all the information and knowledge about the class, and then he will share or import this knowledge to his students. Okay. And then we have the student-centered learning, which actually happens in two ways, not only one way like this one. This one is a one way of transferring the knowledge, while this one, as we can see, we have the teacher here and here are the students. They are like sharing together. There are two ways of communications between both students and the teacher. The teacher is not the facilitator only, he is sharing with them as well. Okay, and what we could be sharing is the knowledge, the experience, the beliefs. So this way is much more better than the first one, because we are giving the students a value. We are giving them the right to actually share their own beliefs, their own experience, their knowledge, and so on. And then finally, as always, this is the end of the class, and this is actually the e-learning activity that we are going to take for this week, which is differentiate between teacher-centered and student-centered learning. And I am very sure that if you watch this video, you will get to know the differences between each one of these strategy and give some examples. And we'll see you guys online, and take care and stay safe. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.